Hello friends. Welcome to my new JPA, Hibernate programming tutorial series video. In this tutorial, we will discuss about how to implement many-to-many mapping by @many-to-many annotation in Hibernate using JPA. Let's move ahead. Friends. Persistence.xml file used in this example must have following properties, as mentioned in the slide. Friends, you can watch my complete video on persistence.xml. In this tutorial we can skip explaining the persistence.xml. Only property to mention is hibernate.hbm2ddl.auto, having value as create. This property signifies that, whenever we run application, it should delete previous schema and table, and create new table based on the persist method call. Moving ahead. Let's see what is many-to-many mapping in database model. Here, a author can write many books, and a book can be written by many authors. Therefore, author to book is a many-to-many relationship. Author table has a primary key as author ID, and book table has a primary key as book ID. In order to make many-to-many mapping between author and book, there has to be a third table, say author to book, that does mapping between the author and book, to demonstrate many-to-many relationship. The author ID has to be foreign key in table author to book. Similarly, book ID has to be foreign key in table author to book, as shown in figure. Moving ahead. How is this relationship represented in the entities? Author entity has a reference to list of books, as author can write many books. And, similarly, book entity has a reference to list of authors, as book can be written by many authors. Annotation used to demonstrate this is @many-to-many and vice versa. In coming slides we will look into this more and discuss how all is done. Moving ahead. Let's create an entities by name author and book. In order to know more about entities, please watch my previous videos on JPA. Let's move ahead and discuss, how can we map author and book as many-to-many. Author entity has a reference to list of books, as author can write many books. And, similarly, book entity has a reference to list of authors, as book can be written by many authors. Moving ahead. In order to make author to book as many-to-many, we have to put @many-to-many annotation over list of books property in author entity. In author entity, @many-to-many annotation signifies that an author can write many books. Moving ahead. At the book side, @many-to-many annotation has to be put over list of authors reference. In book entity, @many-to-many annotation signifies that a book can be written by many authors. Since author ID and book ID has to be made foreign key in author to book table, we have to follow two things. Number 1. Put @join table annotation over list of authors property in book entity. This annotation will provide information to Hibernate about the join table, that is the third table which will hold many-to-many mapping between author and book. In this annotation, we can provide information such as name of the join table, in our case it's author to books. Here in this join table, we have to provide name of primary keys as author ID and book ID. Both primary keys of entities will go in the join table. We can also provide names to these columns, which hold primary keys by providing information in annotation property, join columns and inverse join columns. Join columns, here, we have to provide column name for primary key for the entity where this annotation is placed. Here in our case it's book entity, so we have to provide book ID as column name. We can also provide another entity's primary key column name through inverse join columns. Here inverse join columns takes in a column name for the entity which has been mapped to book, that is author. Here in our case it's author entity which is mapped by book, so we have to provide author ID as inverse join column name. Number 2. Provide mapped by value as list of authors for @many-to-many annotation, which we have placed on list of books property in author entity. The mapped by value here is list of authors. This name has to match with the instance variable name list of authors in book entity. The line drawn tells that, mapped by list of authors value should match with the name of instance variable for list of authors, in book entity. Moving ahead. Let's create test class to create many-to-many mapping. Let's discuss the code point by point. Number 1, create two authors, say author 1 and author 2 instance. Set name of author 1 as Joshua and name of author 2 as Kathy. Moving ahead. Number 2, create three books, say book 1, book 2 and book 3 instance. Set book name of book 1 as effective Java. Book name of book 2 as SCJP. And book name of book 3 as Java for beginners. Moving ahead. Number 3, create a many-to-many relationship between author and book created above. Say, author 1 has written book 1 and book 2. So set the list of books in author 1 to book 1 and book 2. Moving ahead. Say, author 2 has written book 1 and book 3. So set the list of books in author 2 to book 1 and book 3. Moving ahead. Map whole scenario, in a reverse way. Set the list of authors in book 1 to author 1 and author 2. Similarly, to all others. Moving ahead. Number 4, let's call persist method of entity manager to persist author 1, author 2, book 1, book 2 and book 3 instances. This will create a table author, author 2 books and book in database, and persist above author and book values into it. Friends, for rest of code working you can refer my previous tutorials on JPA. Moving ahead. Let's check database for table author, author 2 books and book and run a select query on it, as shown in figure. The image in slide displays the 2-row for author table, having author ID and author name columns into it. The author 2 books displays 3 rows, having mapping between author ID and book ID created above. The book table has 3 rows having book ID and book name. Friends, for rest of code working you can refer my previous tutorials on JPA. Moving ahead. So friends, this was the tutorial on how to implement many-to-many mapping by @many-to-many annotation in Hibernate using JPA. So friends, go through this video 2 to 3 times so that many-to-many mapping concept in JPA gets more clear to you. Hope you like this video. Please give 1 minute to like, share, comment or subscribe my channel, or you can visit my website at www.hubberspot.com.